All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to week number 8. That is right, week number 8 of your 9489 class, which is your cultural heritage class. As always, I'm your professor, Dr. J.S.K. Austin, and we are going to have a very short check-in video this week. I know I say that every week, but this week I am going to hold to it. And the reason why is because you've got another video with me in it among your assigned course materials. So we're gonna, just kind of ease up on how much you have to listen to me, because you are going to have to listen to me again in just a few minutes when you start watching the video that I have included in the course materials about the NITSNETS case study. So we're going to do a state of the course update, and then I'm just going to say a few words about this week's content. First of all, the state of the course update. Let's go ahead and jump right into that. First of all, I did want to just again reiterate this quote here. This was from the comedian Cat Williams when he was actually on the Joe Rogan podcast. And in case you're wondering, no, I'm not a Joe Rogan fan. It's just that I am a Cat Williams fan, and so I did check out that entire podcast episode. And to me, it underwhelmed, but at the same time, hey, we got this quote out of it, and I actually should have put some commas around "you found," because that would make it make more sense. But what Cat Williams said was, no matter where you're looking, information is the driving force of almost every war and conflict. It was about the place you conquered. Not only did you conquer them, but you got the chance to know what they knew, and that you found was more important than anything else. And I do want to, that is something that's going to be kind of a recurring theme in some of the modules that we have in this class, and it is something that matters. It's something that is essential to understanding cultural heritage, is that one of the ways to, well, two ways. First of all, two things. First of all, okay, it's not going to be as short as I thought. All right, I am going to go on a little bit. But yes, two things. First of all, when you all are information professionals, you're going into this field to either be librarians or archivists or museum curators or that sort of thing, but most of you are. But with that said, you all deal in information, and that is one thing that actually is understated, I think, when we talk about war and conflict, is how information actually plays into wars. And I'm not going to belabor this video by actually explaining what this concept is, but you all may want to Google the concept information dominance. This concept goes outside of the scope of this class, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But what I do want to say is that information dominance is a very under-discussed way in which militaries actually try to overpower their opponents. So information dominance is a whole thing. It's something that you all may find interesting, since you all are going to be library and information science professionals, okay? So there's that. Again, you might want to look up that term for yourself. But the other thing that I want to say about that is two things that conquering armies do is they take the knowledge of the people that they conquered, and that's a cultural heritage kind of thing. And that's also why in African countries, a lot of times knowledge is passed down through oral tradition, as opposed to the West, where in the West we tend to write things down. One of the reasons for that is because it's actually harder to take knowledge when it is passed down through oral tradition than it is to take knowledge when it is, or steal knowledge when it is actually recorded in a written form. And so people think of Africans as primitive, but this is actually not a primitive thing, in my opinion. When you think about the fact that Africans share their wisdom and their information and proverbs by word of mouth, it is so that outside cultures cannot take advantage of and exploit that wisdom and knowledge and that sort of thing. So there is actually a whole lot of knowledge and wisdom that Africans pass down to each other that those of us who are outside of the continent aren't even aware of, and we think it's because they don't have it. It's not because they don't have it, and this is a theme that's explored in the Black Panther movies. It's not that they don't have that knowledge, it's that they preserve it in a different way, and that different way is actually a safeguard so that other cultures can't steal that wisdom and that knowledge and pervert it or twist it or claim it as their own. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. But the other thing is, yes, as you all know, when armies conquer other people, what they tend to do is also the victors control the pen. So after people are conquered, it is usually the conquering forces that write the history. And a lot of times when they write that history, they make themselves look in the best light, so to speak. So they will write history in such a way that may make the people that they conquered seem less than, and then they may make themselves seem quote unquote more than. And one of the ways that they may make themselves seem more than is when they conquer these people, they may actually steal the knowledge, especially if it's written. They may actually steal the knowledge of the cultures that they've conquered and claim it as their own, destroy the original artifacts, destroy the original writings, destroy the original by killing the original holders of the knowledge if it's passed down through oral tradition, and then they write it down and claim it as their own, and then they convince everybody that they are the great ones and not the people that they conquered. Okay, so there's a reason why that Cat Williams quote is recorded, and it is in this class, and it is a big deal and something for you all to kind of keep in mind if you are going to appreciate what I'm doing with this class. All right, now let's move on from that and talk about what's coming down the pipeline, since this is part of the state of the course update. So as far as assignments that you have going on, your midterm quiz is going to be due a little bit later on this month, and the midterm quiz is actually really easy. It's open book for one thing, so if you want to ask, I'm not going to make you all use the any of that software that sort of captures whether or not you might be looking at something while you're trying to answer a prompt or answer a question or something like that, the lockdown browser or anything else. I don't use that stuff, so I just make these things open book. You all are grad students. Why am I gonna treat you like undergrads and police you that sort of way? But yes, there is a 4-point quiz that's going to be due on March the 22nd, and it's very easy. And in addition to it being very easy, it's open book, so that makes it even easier. We do have a synced session next week, so there will not be a oh, I'm sorry. No, we don't. I'm sorry, I just lied to y'all. We have a synced session on the 20th, so that is 2 weeks from now. All right, so in 2 weeks, we're going to have Andrea Jackson-Gavin with the Historically Black College and University Digital Trust. She's going to be talking to you all about some of the elements of cultural heritage within HBCUs, and that's the acronym for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. So that's what we have coming down the pipeline this month. Other than that, you have your discussion board prompts and that sort of thing, but things are pretty chill. You're not going to really have to stress or worry about too much throughout the month of March. Just, also get your mini interviews done with the cultural heritage workers. Those are due on March the 17th. And several of you have already done those. But outside of that, yes, your next paper, which is your 4 most important cultural heritages in a community paper, that is not due until April the 7th. So you've got some time on that. That's over a month away. And that paper is not going to take you that long anyway. And again, you've got over a month to do it. And then also, and I mentioned this before, you do have these sample papers. Because my prompts in this class are really creative and things that I came up with and not necessarily what people are used to doing in other classes, that's why I do the sample papers in this class, whereas I tend to not like to do sample papers because I think it limits creativity. Now, please be creative. I would rather you all take creative approaches as rather than just follow a formula of a sample paper. But if after you read the prompt, you're lost, then that's when you can look at the sample papers and be like, okay, this is what I can do and this is how I should approach it. All right, so that is it for State of the Course update. So what I want to do now is maybe take 5 minutes, hopefully less, and you can speed this up by the way, but 5 minutes or less just to talk about our subject matter this week. And our subject matter this week is local businesses and cultural heritage related to business. Thankfully, this has not been as controversial of a module as I thought it was going to be. I thought that people were going to object to me including something like this in this class because librarians, a lot of times, they're very anti-capitalist, and not just anti-capitalist. A lot of librarians are actually fairly anti-profit. That's not the case with me, but that's something that you will see as a recurring theme within this field. But what I want you all to think about is that when it comes to small town businesses and local businesses, a lot of times they actually do provide livelihood for the people who live in a small town, and they provide, and so they also provide just straight up identity to these small towns. And so a lot of times when you see local businesses that are, or businesses that started out in certain places, and I'm just going to use as a very crude example right now, since I'm from North Carolina, a very crude example is that the Krispy Kreme donuts, the donut shop Krispy Kreme, that started here in North Carolina. That's Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Also PepsiCo, Pepsi Cola. That company started in New Bern, North Carolina, on the eastern part of North Carolina. So what I say, the reason why I say this though, is because as those businesses grew, they actually did provide more and more of an identity for people who were thinking to themselves, okay, what is Winston-Salem known for? Winston-Salem currently it is also known for Wake Forest University, but Wake Forest was not founded in Winston-Salem. It's just there now. It was actually founded in Wake Forest, North Carolina. But when people think about, okay, what do you associate with Winston-Salem, North Carolina? They think about, they think about one of the tobacco companies as well, but they also think about Krispy Kreme and let me see which tobacco company that was. Okay, and I'm glad I caught myself because I was actually wrong. R.J. Reynolds was not founded in Winston-Salem. It just been headquartered there for a long time and grew in Winston-Salem. But still, when people think of R.J. Reynolds, they do think of Winston-Salem, and R.J. Reynolds provided livelihood to hundreds of people in the Winston-Salem area, and so did Krispy Kreme. And so these are the things that people appreciate. Not everyone can have a government job or a job in the nonprofit sector. A lot of us, especially in a country like the United States, have to make our livelihoods by quote unquote working for the man or working for these companies. But people appreciate that. And I remember one of the things that I remember the most from my days as a newspaper reporter was when one of our local textile mills in Henderson, North Carolina, Harriet and Henderson Yarns, when they went belly up and started moving all their operations overseas, I actually had to interview a lot of former employees, and it was painful. There were people cursing at me on the phone because they were so upset. There were people crying because they were so upset. And there were people just also recounting all of these fun memories they had, all of the experiences they had, all of the people that they met. And doing that work, especially for small town people in a place like Henderson, North Carolina, just gave people just a sense of importance and a sense of, hey, I am contributing. I am helping make this society great by giving this company 40 hours of my life every single week, and just contributing and, helping, but also helping my coworkers and my community, helping my coworkers pay their bills because I'm working with my coworkers, helping my community, contributing to the tax base, so forth and so on. So even though I know librarians get really caught up in this anti-profit rhetoric and everything, I really want our librarians to kind of consider that these companies still have, yes, it's terrible what you see today with all of these conglomerates and all of these corporations that just grow and grow and grow and move people out, and, cause the end of, local mom and pop stores and all of that stuff. But at the same time, a lot of these companies, especially back in the day before profits over people really got to where it is today, a lot of times people really, the job was what they had, and it was what made them proud. It made them proud to say, hey, I don't have much, but I know that what I do have, I earned it in an honest way. I earned it in a way that did not hurt anybody in my community. I made an honest living. I didn't go out and sell drugs. I didn't go out and, I didn't go out and rob anybody. I went out and I went to that company and I gave them 40 hours of my time every week, and they paid me enough to support my wife and family, which they're not, or my husband and family, or my spouse and family, or partner and family. But all of these things that really the companies are not, if we're honest, doing now, which is why I understand the anti-capitalist sentiment within our field. Nowadays, these companies are not paying us enough to actually have comfortable lives, but there was a time when they were. And I know even that gets disputed, but I'm going to say I actually talked to the people in 2003, those people from Harriet and Henderson who had lost their jobs. I spoke to them, and it was real. And it's something that if you haven't lived it, then don't tell me that those companies didn't do anything for those people, because those people had a lot of pride in Harriet and Henderson. But I will also say that Harriet and Henderson actually treated those employees well, and we don't see that necessarily from corporations and companies these days. Okay. With that said, even with your small town business, you're gonna, and I'm not gonna belabor this point because you're gonna see this in the interview that I did with Bill. And unfortunately, Knits Knats has closed at this point and never reopened. But one thing that you're gonna see in this interview is Bill is gonna talk, and he's gonna talk very passionately about it because he's in pain. He's in pain in this video because he put his life into that store for several years and then had to give it up. You know what I'm saying? But it is something when you listen to Bill talk about what Knits Knats has meant to the small town that it served. And there are stories like that throughout the country, throughout the nation. So many small towns have small businesses that were founded there that grew into larger businesses, or businesses that stayed small. And as they stayed small, they served their communities in a unique way that cannot be duplicated by those larger corporations. And that's one of the themes that you're going to see in that interview with Bill. So with that said, I think I've said enough right there. Let's just leave it right there. But I do want to say to you, if you don't like this module before you actually dive into it, because you're thinking, ah, man, business, this is not what librarians are about. We're not about business. Just go in with more of an open mind and see exactly how these things actually can be beneficial and provide identity to the places that they serve, in a similar way, again, to how New Bern has been provided some of its identity from Pepsi Cola, and how Krispy Kreme provided Winston-Salem, North Carolina with some of its identity. And again, you'll find small towns throughout this country that base part of their identity on the businesses that were successful there. All right. I am Dr. Jace, and businesses a lot of times will belong to a place. All right, I'll see you all next week.